Okay, so here's a problem that I found with the LED fog lights on my Jeep JLU. Fab Fours said that if you had a plastic bumper, I mean that's how I read it, your factory fog lights would work. However, they might have been saying that was the halogen lights. Mine is a Willys edition, so it had the plastic bumper, and I see some Rubicons have the plastic bumper, but mine have the LED lights on it. Now the difference is apparently the brackets around where these holes are different. You can see that they don't, this is supposed to be the right one, and you can see that those notches do not line up with where these brackets are. So what I think I'm gonna do is actually, because I unclipped these from the wiring harness, and it's the same clip for both sides, is I'm going to take the right one and use it for the left side, because these two holes, three holes actually, mount up pretty flush to this flat piece. And I'm gonna drill just two holes here and then bolt it down so it will hold. And then for added support over here, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Maybe drill a hole here and then have an extension of, I don't know, something to have a spacer up to that third piece, because you can see it's substantially higher than the other two, so it's really hard to get support on that. But maybe just two bolts there would be enough. We'll see. Another point I want to add of why I need to do this is because rather than going out and purchasing fog lights, I looked online, and quality fog lights are upwards of $200 minimum. That would be work for these. And then they also recommended these little cube lights by Rigid, but those are more flood beams rather than fog lights. And there's a difference between flood and fog. Fog is a little more widespread, low beam. That's the best way I can describe it. Whereas fog is that one, and then flood is the one where it's just kind of a wide dispersed circular beam of light, where that's actually you shouldn't be driving with that because it's dangerous for oncoming traffic. So fog lights are safe, and there's no reason, I feel like, if I can get this thing mounted, to go out and spend money on new fog lights when these ones are pretty quality. But I did ask Fab Fours, and they said there was no way, they don't have a mounting kit or anything. So if I can pull this off, I think everybody should do this, and Fab Fours should actually think about redesigning a bracket of some sort for this accommodation. So I'm going to want to line this up so that it is as straight, that top piece right here lines up straight as this flushly touches the bottom. All right, so it turns out I did find a metal punch, and you just grab a hammer and this, and then it's easier if you have 4 hands, but if you have a partner, which I didn't, one can place this and hold a light, because it's, where I am, it's really dark, and the other can hold the hammer and the punch and punch out the 2 holes so you can mark where you need to drill. You can see that I had to do multiple attempts because I kept screwing up, because I kept losing light, but I know which one I need to drill from those 5, and then up here it's the left one that I need to drill. So we'll get started. Alright, so I got one drilled, and a little trick, actually I realized if you are a normal human being with 2 hands, is that once you drill your first hole, to go ahead and thread, just your bolt and your nut through, and that'll allow you to free up a hand so you can punch a correct center hole. And I did so right there. It's a little bit off-centered, but it still should work just fine. So the drill bit size I chose for this M4 bolt was a 532 drill bit, black oxide. I just chose it because it was a little bit wider than the diameter of the bolt, and it looks like, turns out it fit pretty perfectly. It's just a little bit of give, but not much. Okay, so I just want to show you how I drilled. I marked the spot, and then I'm gonna find it with my drill bit. I'm gonna just easily go into it. Key here is not a lot of downward pressure. You just want to vary your speeds and not, you know, go extremely fast. I just want to start it off so then I could put a little bit of WD-40 since I don't have any lubricant. Other than that, here, you know, on that spot to keep my drill bit in good shape, and then I'll finish out drilling that. But before I did, I want to make sure I checked that these holes lined up. Looks like they do. Perfect. All right, so drilled the 2 holes and just test fit by putting the 2 bolts in, and it fits perfectly. All right, so that worked. I was able to put the 2 bolts on. It was really hard to actually get it, you know, on the other side of that bracket because of just, you know, clearance issues. So I'm just gonna go with like this, and it looks fine. It works, you know, sturdy, very sturdy, you know, just from those 2 points. I am gonna drill 2 holes though right here, so that way if I wanted to add, you know, like bolt down a piece of metal that'll have a, you know, you could have a spacer to go maybe and secure this one, you know, in the future if I decide to do that, just so I don't have to take the whole bumper off again to you know, drill. So I'm gonna do those 2, but just like that, it appears fine. So I'm gonna do the other side. Okay, so now that you have both bolted on there, just like that, they're pretty sturdy. You're gonna put the wiring harness on. Okay, so the wiring harness is on. Plug that one into that. Zip tied it up here just so it's secure. Ran it across. Since this is the right side, this is where we'll be plugging in. And I just zip tied the cordage, you know, all together to make it nice and neat. Now they have 2 tie-off points for your zip tie to secure this cord. I don't know if I'm gonna be going over so I can zip tie it there, or I'm going under to zip tie it there. I think I'm gonna really have to stretch this to get to the outlet, so we'll see when I get under the car. Okay, so now being underneath the vehicle and having it mounted up on top of the frame, I realized that the cord needs to go up and over, so you'll utilize that top little zip tie off there. Just zip tie it at the top of the bunch rather than this one, because it's gonna go over the bracket and clip in on this side over here. I realize I don't have enough, you know, slack to really get this, you know, back on that little slot, so I'll just let it dangle. I mean, it'll be fine. It's zip tied over here. All right, so I actually changed up my hardware. I used shorter bolts. I'm gonna use these M4.7 by 16, that size, just so that way it's a little more flush in there. Used 4 spacers or washers and 4 nylock nuts. I'll tell you what I did for that. All right, so as you can see, it's a little more, you know, crisp right there, with just how, you know, far those bolts go out. It was kind of hard to reach around and get them in, but you can kind of go through the front of this bumper to, you know, place them, and you should get them on there, you know, just with a little bit of willpower. And then, so what I'm thinking for this bracket is actually purchase some aluminum strip or whatever, and it's pretty bendable, so I'm gonna probably measure this out, bolt it down, and then like bend it up so it makes contact here, and then just, you know, drill the holes necessary in this and bolt it down to those 3 sections, so that way it has a little more stability. But even without it, this thing's not going anywhere. It's pretty rock solid on there. I just took some aluminum stripping and bent it into an S, aligned it with the 2 holes, made my cuts, and then drilled the one right there for that hole. I'll just bolt these down, and that'll be an extra just little, you know, support for it. But it was, you know, it was good without it, but this is just for some extra reassurance. All right, so you can see that I finished putting these little brackets on. It was, you know, when you're doing this, make sure that you do it a little more like this one, where the Z is a little more forward and this nut's a little bit more towards the elbow of that Z, because you need that clearance to put that bolt on. My mistake I made on this one, which I could have just redone it, but this was like directly underneath it, so I had to use a really small wrench to hold that in place. Then on the back side where there's not a lot of clearance, I had to, you know, try to torque it down, but I couldn't get a torque wrench back there, so I just had to use 2 small wrenches, and that took a while. So another thing is you could drill your holes on this bumper a little farther back, just so you have more space. But yeah, that's how that looks on both of them. And bolts right there. This thing isn't going anywhere like that. Just make sure you use M4 bolts with the M4 nylock nuts and, you know, small washer between them. You should be good to go. All right, so there it is with the fog lights installed. Kind of a close-up. You can see that I didn't make them totally straight. You know, I probably could have tweaked them to make it a little bit straighter, a little angle, but from a distance, I mean, performance-wise, you're really not going to notice. So there's one. It being recessed, I don't think makes a difference at all. Doesn't have to be totally up front against the plate. So I think that that's perfect, and they're really sturdy right on there. Yeah, really happy with it. We'll see it with the lights on. And that is it with the lights on. Looks pretty good. Good clearance and everything. And they work perfectly fine.